Have you ever felt lonely as a foster adoptive parent? Like no one else in your life really understands what you're going through and what you deal with on a day-to-day basis? Well, I was recently at a retreat for foster adoptive moms, and something happened that completely opened my eyes. On the last day of the retreat, they gave everyone a candle. They turned off all the lights, and all that we had there were our candles. Someone stood on stage and read statements that a lot of us could relate to. The first one: I have parented a child who was born to another woman. Every single candle went up. I am parenting a child with special needs. A scattering of candles went up. I worry about my adopted child's future. Quite a few candles went up on that one as well. My child struggles with a mental health issue. Many candles were raised in the air. Now, I've done this activity at other retreats before, and it always brings tears to my eyes. And oftentimes there's not much of a dry eye in the room because we all feel so cared for and so loved and understood in that moment. But this time, a more maybe mundane statement or milder statement stuck out to me more than the rest this time. I'm facing struggles with my children that those in my life who have not fostered or adopted simply don't understand. And I have to say, I was stunned because every single candle in the room went up. Now, I think sometimes as an adoptive parent, I've thought, oh, maybe I'm just not very good at this, and maybe that's why I don't feel like I can relate to other parents. And to see all of those candles raise up, it was so eye-opening to me to see that I was not alone in that struggle. And I think it was probably powerful for all of us in that room to see that we're sometimes experiencing things with our children that others in our lives may not understand, but to be in a room full of women who all understood is just so powerful. And I don't know about you, but there have been so many times in my adoptive parenting journey where I've had to stop and ask myself, am I crazy? Is this as hard as I think it is, or is there something wrong with me? Because it felt like what I was dealing with was not normal. But then when I would open up about it and share it with someone who had not fostered or adopted, I would feel like I was being maybe overly dramatic or overly sensitive, or that maybe I wasn't accurately rating the situation and blowing it out of proportion somehow. It was really hard to know if what I was feeling and experiencing was normal or not. And it took me a long time and a lot of talking with other foster adoptive parents to realize I was not crazy. At least not in that way. Other ways, to be determined. But here's the thing. What we are doing as foster and adoptive parents is hard work. We are willingly walking into brokenness. And you can get cut along the way. There are going to be difficult things when you walk into a broken situation like this. So if you are an adoptive parent, this video is to prove to you that you are not crazy and reassure you that you are in fact having a normal response to a very abnormal situation. And if you are someone who is not a foster adoptive parent, but you have someone in your life who is, the fact that you are even here watching this video means so much. It already shows that you care about them and that you want to be the best support you can, which every single foster adoptive parent dreams of having someone like that in their lives. So thank you so much for being here. So today we're going to talk about 3 things no adoptive parent wants to hear. And if you are one of the parents who has heard these things, I hope you understand that you don't have to take it to heart. And if you are someone who wants to know how to best support someone in your life who is adopted, I'm going to share some alternatives of what you can say instead. Quick break here because I want to let you know that my adoption support group, Adopt Together, is finally getting ready to reopen its doors to new members. We started this group back in August or September, and I have not opened up the doors since then because this is just something I only want to open up a couple of times a year. However, if you are kind of curious, what is this group about? What can I expect from it? I am offering a free peek into what that looks like. I have a 1-hour training video that is normally only available to the members of that group, but I am going to give it to you for free to give you a sneak peek into what you could expect if you were to join Adopt Together. Just click the first link in the description box below and you will get that free video sent right to you. All right, so let's jump into what we should not say to adoptive parents because they do not want to hear it. So sometimes when a struggling adoptive parent opens up, especially if they open up to someone who is a biological parent who has not fostered or adopted, you might hear this: no one said being a parent is easy. This has got to be one of the most frustrating ones for me to hear because no one said it was going to be easy, but I feel like this is just such a rude response because to me, it's the equivalent of telling someone to shut up. It's like, wham, this is so hard. Didn't you expect it to be hard? You know what I mean? It's just not compassionate at all. It's very much like, yeah, it is hard. That's what you should expect. Just not helpful. Just not helpful to say to someone who's struggling. I think we should avoid saying this to any parent, biological or adoptive. If they're opening up about something they're struggling with, we have to be able to give a better response than this. And the thing is, a response like this completely shuts down the conversation and makes the person feel like they cannot open up and share what they're going through, which just keeps us isolated as parents, which is one of the big reasons why parents struggle, because they don't feel they can talk to other people about what they're dealing with. I also feel like the type of person who says this comment is typically one of those one-upper type of people. So for example, if you said, oh, I'm really tired today, they have to say, oh, I'm way more tired than you could ever be in your whole life, as if them suffering more than you is some sort of badge of honor. And so sometimes these people, when you come to them with a concern, something you're struggling with, they're like, oh, well, yeah, of course it's hard. Like, what did you expect? And I have sometimes experienced with people who are biological parents and they have a friend or a family member who is an adoptive parent. And that adoptive parent says, you know, I'm really dealing with some stuff that most biological parents don't deal with. They almost take that as a personal attack, as if the adoptive parent is saying, well, I'm doing something you could never handle. And that's not what it is. This adoptive parent is opening up because they're struggling, not because they're trying to come across as, I'm way better than you. Believe me, we don't feel like we're way better. We feel like we're failing in so many ways every day. And so please, if you are someone who's not an adoptive parent, do not take that as this person saying that your parenting is not ever hard or that your struggles are invalid because ours are harder. We're just trying to open up. So throw a lifeline and just be willing to listen. The second thing that you should not say to an adoptive parent, and again, I have had people say this to me and it was just not helpful, which is it's a lot nicer sounding than the first one, which is, oh, that's normal. All kids do that. And oh my goodness, I don't know why this one's more frustrating to me than a lot of them. And the thing is, it often is coming from a good place. People are saying this because they're trying to ease your fears and ease your worries. Because if you're explaining something your child has been doing and they're like, oh, my child did that before, they're just like, oh, all kids do that sometimes. And even if that person truly thinks that it's normal and it's something all kids do, it's still not really helpful to say when someone is opening up about their struggles. First of all, you're probably wrong because oftentimes when I've experienced this with biological parents that I know, they're thinking, oh, my kid has done that before. My kid has done that as an isolated incident, or maybe for a very short period of a certain developmental stage, they were doing things. And what they don't always realize is that this is not one isolated incident, or this is not just over a short little time of their childhood development. This is ongoing every day on top of all sorts of other behaviors. And it is just so difficult. And so when parents come to you and they say, oh, that's so normal, my kids do that too, all kids do that, what it's really doing is kind of reaffirming to the foster adoptive parent that they're crazy, because why are they struggling so much if every kid does this? And like I said, this usually comes from super well-meaning people that just want you to feel better. They want you to feel happier and to know like, oh, it's okay that that's happening. It's fine. Every kid does that. It's not coming from a rude place. Like I would say that the first one is often coming from more. So that can be hard because they're kind of trying to tell you like everything will be okay. Well, Janet, not everything will be okay. I don't know anyone named Janet. I just thought that would be funny because that's sometimes what you think, well, what if everything's not okay? And I will tell you that when people told me this in the past, the translation in my head was, everyone else can handle this except for you. So what's wrong with you? You are making a big deal out of nothing apparently because all these other parents are handling this just fine because every kid does this. And so sometimes I am the type of person where if I feel I'm being misunderstood, I tend to start over-explaining. It's something I'm working on. But I know that in the past when someone has told me, oh, well, all kids do that, then I'm like doubling down, telling them how terrible my kid is and all the stuff they do. And then that doesn't feel good either because I love my kids. I don't want to be telling the world that they're terrible, but I'm also trying to be understood and heard as a parent who's struggling and trying to figure out what to do. So that is the second one. I think that's the one I've heard the most because, again, it comes from well-meaning people. It comes from people who are trying to be encouraging. They're not trying to put you down. They're not trying to be rude. And that's where I don't really get upset with them, but I have to really deal with that on my own and say, okay, they might not understand the full scope of it. They're trying to be helpful. I can't control them. I can only control my response and how I take it. But still, it's one of those things that's hard to hear. And the third thing can be really hurtful to hear, which is, I've never seen them do that, or, well, they never do that around me. Maybe it's your parenting or how you're interacting with them. And oh man, this one is tough to hear. Now here's the thing, we can all improve our parenting skills. Every single one of us, any given day of the year, there are things we could be doing better, right? But when you are struggling and actively trying to do better, and then someone says this to you, not the most helpful. It's kind of blaming the parent when they're reaching out for help or reaching out for just someone to listen to what they're experiencing. And here's the thing, I think most people know, most biological parents know this as well, that our kids tend to be better for other people than they are for us. A big reason is because they feel safer with us. You know, I think about with me and my siblings, like if we were at a friend's house or something like that, and their parents were like, hey, can you clean this up? We'd be like, oh yeah, we'll do it right away. We'll listen exactly what their parents say. Whereas if my parents asked us to do something at home, we might be more likely to be like, do I have to? Or like whining a little bit about it or like talking back. I think that's more common to do with your own parents in your own home, whether you're adopted or not. Because again, that's your safe space. You understand what's expected of you there. You understand that your parents are still going to love you, even if you talk back and don't do what you're supposed to do. Whereas with other people, you don't feel that same sense of connection. And so you don't feel that same sense of safety. So that's why I think it's funny when people say this to adoptive parents, because I'm like, do you ever think that maybe they just feel safer with me as their parent? And that's why these behaviors are coming out at home. But then when we have trauma added in, there's this whole other layer to the mix where it's like, sometimes the child is taking out all of their aggression and anger at the fact that they were in foster care and they're not with their biological parent and that they're sad and confused. They're taking it out on the parent. And it's generally taken out on the mom, okay? It's generally taken out on the mom because oftentimes these kids have had mother figures, but maybe have not had father figures. And so the mother figure is replacing you as the mother figure. You're replacing the other mother figure that they had. And that can give that sense of torn loyalty where they're going to act out more around you and towards you than they will to other people. And the other thing we have to consider, and I've made a video all about this before, but it's the fawn response. You know, we talk about fight, flight, and freeze, but there's a fourth response to stressful situations, and that is the fawn response. The fawn response is, how can I charm people around me and please them so that I therefore am safe? And a lot of kids who are adopted or have spent time in foster care in general can develop this fawn response as a survival coping mechanism. And so you'll find that when they're around strangers or when they're around their peers at school or their teachers even, they can act one way when at home, they're going to act a completely different way with possibly a lot more difficult behaviors. Now, I'm not going to leave you hanging and just say, don't say this, don't say that, don't say this. I want to give you something you can say instead. If you are someone who loves an adoptive parent or a foster parent and you care about them, you want to help them, or if you're the foster adoptive parent and you just need someone to tell you this, it's going to work for both. And here's what you can say. It's so simple. Wow, that sounds so hard. Isn't that easy? It's just called empathizing. It's just empathizing. Wow, that sounds so hard. Because guess what? Even if it is something that all parents deal with or all kids do, clearly this person is struggling. And just saying, that sounds so hard, it just does so much to help that parent understand that they're not crazy for having these feelings or for struggling. And it shows that you care for them. That can do so much, just that one simple statement. And there are two ways you can follow up on that. So you can say, wow, that sounds so hard. And you could ask a question like, how are you coping with that? Get them to talk through what are they doing to cope with it. Maybe they'll say, well, I'm considering therapy for my kid, or I'm considering therapy for myself, or been talking to their doctor about their medication, or maybe it gets them to start thinking through some coping strategies of what they could do. Maybe they start to realize, you know what, now that you mention that, I'm not coping with it very well. I'm kind of avoiding it. Maybe I should come up with some strategies for myself to cope with these difficult behaviors. And it gets a conversation going in a super non-judgmental way. Whereas if you said, well, have you thought about therapy? Okay, most adoptive parents have thought about therapy at some point. So that's not going to be a shocking new thing that you're suggesting to them. But if you ask them, oh, wow, how are you coping with that? It gets them to think, and it allows them to share what they're going through. So I highly recommend that. Now, there's another thing you could do as well. Instead of asking that question, you could offer a way to help. And this is not a requirement. Obviously, we're not just entitled to everyone's help just because we fostered or adopted. I will say that community goes such a long way. And we've had so many people come around us and support us, whether it's my parents taking our kids so that Nick and I could get all away on a little trip together and just get some respite, or whether it's friends watching our kids or someone coming over with a meal. There's so many ways that we've been supported, and just really simple things you can do. Maybe if you're at that friend's house hanging out, you just do their dishes for them. Maybe you offer to order them pizza one night when you know they're going through a really tough time. And maybe you just want to say, hey, let me take you out to coffee or out to lunch, just you and that parent who's struggling, and just allow them to talk and allow them to be in a safe space where they can share things with you. Bonus points is if you offer babysitting. Again, not required. We're not just entitled to all of your time and help. But if you have someone in your life who you really care for, maybe a close friend or family member, and you see they're struggling, these are just some simple ideas of things you can do. So here's the thing, even if all you do and all our friends did was listen and say, wow, that is so hard, that is such a balm to our spirits as foster adoptive parents. And I will tell you that someone recently in my life who has been a really good person in this regard is my sister-in-law, Jackie. So shout out Jackie. I doubt she's watching this, but just in case she does, she recently moved to the area. And even in the past, I would occasionally talk to her, and I always found that when I would tell her about things I was struggling with, she always validated it. And she doesn't even have kids, but she has nannied a lot and she's worked with kids. And I always feel like when I share with her, she listens and she believes me. When I say what's happening, how difficult it is, she just listens non-judgmentally, and I appreciate that so much. And I never feel with her that I have to over-explain things or try to prove how difficult they are. I just feel like she kind of accepts it and empathizes. And so who is a Jackie in your life that you could open up to? If you're an adoptive parent, who could you open up to that's someone who in the past, when you've said things, they've been very willing to listen? And you can even tell them, say, I just want to let you know, I appreciate you so much because you actually listen and you don't tell me that I'm crazy or you don't imply that I am. I actually recently told Jackie this because we were going through a really difficult time with one of our kids, and I just needed to talk about it. And talking about it to her helped me understand even how bad it had gotten, and I just wasn't aware of how it was affecting me. And her compassion and response to how I handled it and just encouraging me that I was doing the right thing, it just meant the world. And so if you can find a Jackie in your life, or if you already have someone, oh, it just makes a huge difference to have someone that you can share those things with. And here's the other thing, talking to other adoptive parents who get it is life-changing. If you have a foster adoptive parent in your life who you can kind of walk alongside together and you can talk about these difficult things, that is incredible. However, I know that a lot of the people I talk to do not have that. Or maybe the foster adoptive parents in their lives are also so overwhelmed that it's really hard to get together and find times to talk, which I completely understand. And this is why I run this online group, Adopt Together. This is a place where foster adoptive parents who really understand what you are going through, you'll all be in one space together where you can share at any time what you're going through. It could be 2:00 in the morning and you could go on that Facebook group and you could type out what's on your heart. You could type out your feelings, And there's even an anonymous way that you can do it. So if you don't want your name attached to it, but you want the help, there's that. But the purpose of this group is to offer you support, encouragement, and advice as you're walking through all the difficult parts of this journey. So don't forget to click that link in the description below if you want to grab that free 1-hour training. That again is normally only available to my members, but I'm letting you have it now. So definitely recommend checking that out, and keep your eyes peeled because next week the group will be officially open and you will be able to register and join us. I hope you're feeling encouraged by this, friend. I know it can be a hard and lonely road as an adoptive or foster parent, but just know there's so many other people out there who understand what you're going through and see it and empathize with you. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you next week.